The wind was dry and sharp that evening, carrying the smell of dust and old earth. Evan Cole stood at the edge of his farm, leaning on the wooden handle of his hoe. The day had been long, and the sun was now a dying red circle sinking behind the hills. Shadows stretched across the field, long and thin, like black fingers reaching over the land. Evan wiped the sweat from his forehead. It had been a hard season, too little rain, too much heat. The soil was cracked, thirsty, still. His farm had survived better than most. People said it was because Evan worked harder than anyone else. But deep inside, he knew it was also luck. He was about to head back to his small farmhouse when something caught his eye. Movement, out on the far horizon, just beyond the dusty road. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light. He'd shimmered in the air, bending the distance into strange shapes. But no, there was definitely someone walking toward him. Slow, stumbling. Evan narrowed his eyes. The figure was thin, too thin. The way they moved, it wasn't right. They swayed side to side, as if every step cost them all their strength. He glanced toward the barn, where his old rifle leaned against the wall. Out here, far from the main colony, you didn't take chances. Too many things roamed the wastelands, things desperate enough to kill for a handful of food. As the figure drew closer, Evan felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. She was not human. Her skin shimmered faintly in the dying sunlight, a pale silver that caught the light like soft metal. Her clothes were little more than torn cloth and fraying straps, caked with dirt. Long strands of dark hair clung to her face. Her eyes, large and dark, locked onto his with an intensity that made his breath catch Dot. In her arms, she carried a bundle. It was wrapped tight in worn, faded fabric. She clutched it close to her chest, as if it was the most precious thing in the world. Evan didn't move. His mind raced. The last time a member of her kind had been seen here was years ago, during the border wars. Relations between humans and her species had never been warm, and now they lived apart, each avoiding the other's land. For her to be here, something was very wrong. She stopped at the wooden fence that marked the edge of his property. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her shoulders trembling. Human. Her voice was low, shaking, yet clear enough to reach him over the wind. Please, I will work your fields. Just feed my children. For a moment, the world seemed to go silent. Evan stared at her, his thoughts colliding in confusion. Children. Was that what she carried in that bundle? And why here? Why him? She could have gone to the main colony, though he knew they wouldn't have welcomed her. They had enough trouble feeding their own. The alien woman took a step closer, her hand gripping the fence post for balance. I am Lyra, she said, almost whispering. My people, they are starving. My children have not eaten in 3 days. Her voice cracked on the last words, and for a moment, Evan thought she might fall. Something about her eyes stopped him from telling her to leave. They weren't just desperate, they were determined. She wasn't asking for charity. She was offering herself, her work, her strength, for the survival of her family. Still, Evan hesitated. The rules were clear. Humans kept to human lands. Aliens kept to theirs. Anyone crossing the border risked more than hunger. They risked violence. And if others saw her here working his fields, it could bring trouble. But then his gaze fell. On the bundle again, the fabric shifted slightly, and he saw it a small hand, frail and trembling, slipping out before being pulled back inside. Evan's chest tightened. He remembered a winter, many years ago, when the crops had failed. He remembered his own mother going hungry so he and his brother could eat. That same look in her eyes, the same fear. Before he could speak, Lyra looked over her shoulder. Her body stiffened. The change was instant. Her eyes wide, her muscles tensed. It was the look of someone who knew she was being watched. The wind carried a faint sound, then a slow, heavy scrape like metal against stone. It was far away, but not far enough. Evan didn't know what it was, but the fear in Lyra's face told him one thing: it wasn't good. She turned back to him, her voice urgent now. Please. You must decide. I cannot stay here in the open. Evan's grip tightened on the fence rail. Every instinct told him to send her away, to protect his own life, his own land. But another part of him, the part that still believed in doing what was right, wouldn't let him. And somewhere beyond the hills, the strange scraping sound came again, closer this time. Evan stood there, gripping the fence, staring at the silver-skinned woman on the other side. The last light of the sun painted the land in red and gold, but her face looked pale, almost ghostly. The bundle in her arms shifted again, and he saw another tiny movement inside. He opened his mouth to speak, but she beat him to it. My home is gone, Lyra said quietly, her voice breaking on the last word. The rivers have dried. The ground will not give us food anymore. My people scatter in the wastes. Many have not survived. Evan listened without moving. Her words were simple, but each one carried the weight of a long suffering. I have come far, she continued. 3 days walking, I passed others. They were too weak to follow. I told myself, if I can find a human with land, with food, maybe my children will live. Her eyes met his, and he saw no pride there, only raw determination. I do not ask for your food as a gift. I will work. I will plant. I will harvest. I will mend your fences. My hands are strong. Just feed my children. Her grip on the bundle tightened. Please. Evan shifted his weight. He wanted to say yes, but trouble came with helping outsiders. People in the colony would hear of it, and they would not approve. He could already hear the angry words. Why help them when our own go hungry? And yet, he kept thinking about that small hand he had seen. What's in the hills? Evan asked. Suddenly, her head turned slightly, the muscles in her neck stiff. You heard them? She asked in a low voice. That scraping sound, he said, like metal on rock. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Raiders, she whispered. They hunt the weak. They take food, take workers, take... She stopped, her voice failing her. They have followed me for 2 days. I thought I lost them. The way her eyes flicked to the horizon told him she hadn't. Evan felt the air grow heavier. Helping her meant getting involved with whatever danger was stalking her. But turning her away meant sending her and her children straight into the hands of those raiders. He thought about the rifle in the barn, about the extra sacks of grain in storage, about the long, quiet nights when no one came down this road at all. I've got food, Evan said slowly. Enough for me, and some extra. Her eyes lit with hope for the first time, but he held up a hand. But food alone won't keep you safe. If those raiders find you, they'll take it and you. You can't stay out in the open. I will hide, she said quickly. I have a place in the rocks. My children wait there. They are weak, but they are alive. I cannot bring them here without your word. Her words struck him like a hammer. The children weren't with her. They were out there, somewhere in the cold darkness that was now spreading over the land. waiting. Evan looked toward the hills. Now nothing but black shapes against the blood-orange sky. He imagined 2 or 3 small figures curled up in some narrow cave, shivering, hungry, waiting for a mother who might never return. He swore under his breath. "All right," he said finally. "You work my fields. I'll feed your children." The words left his mouth before he could stop them, and the moment they did, he knew there was no turning back. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, as if holding back a wave of emotion. Then she bowed her head. "You will not regret it." "Don't thank me yet," Evan muttered. "First, we need to get your kids before those raiders do." Her head snapped up, alarm flashing across her face. "No," she said quickly. "They will follow you. It is safer if I go alone." Evan shook his head. "If the raiders are that close, you won't make it. I've got a rifle and 2 good legs. Let's go now, before full dark." She hesitated, torn between fear for her children and fear of leading trouble straight to his doorstep. But the distant scraping sound came again, louder this time, and her decision was made for her. "Follow me," she said. They left the farm, moving quickly, along the narrow dirt path that wound into the barren hills. The air grew colder as night crept in. Stars began to flicker overhead, cold and sharp in the darkening sky. Evan kept his eyes scanning the shadows, the rifle in his hands. He had hunted before, but this was different. Every sound made him tense, the crunch of gravel underfoot, the whisper of the wind through dead grass, the occasional clatter of a loose stone rolling downhill. After nearly half an hour, Lyra slowed. They reached a narrow gap between 2 jagged rocks, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. She slipped inside, and Evan followed. The passage opened into a small, hidden cave, and there they were, 3 small alien children, huddled together under a blanket made from scraps of cloth. Their eyes were large, glowing faintly in the dim light. They looked up at Lyra, their thin faces breaking into weak smiles. She knelt. Setting down her bundle, it had been nothing but an empty cloth, something to make her arms look full, to keep prying eyes from guessing where her real children were. She touched each of their faces, murmuring soft words Evan couldn't understand. Evan's chest tightened again. He had seen hungry children before, but never like this, never so small, so fragile. "They will not last another day without food," Lyra said quietly, her back still to him. Evan knew then that no matter what trouble came from this, he couldn't walk away. But before he could speak, there it was, again, the scraping sound. This time, it came from somewhere just outside the cave. The sound outside was slow and heavy. A scrape, then a pause. A shuffle of boots against stone. Evan froze, his hand tightening on the rifle. Lyra's children pressed closer to her, their glowing eyes darting toward the mouth of the cave. Lyra moved silently, putting a finger to her lips. She gestured toward a darker tunnel at the back of the cave, a narrow crack in the rock barely wide enough for 1 person to squeeze through. Evan whispered, "Is there another way out?" She shook her head. "Too small for you. Only the little ones can hide there." The scraping came again, closer now. Evan's stomach tightened. Whoever it was, they were not trying to be quiet. Lyra leaned toward him, her voice barely a breath. "If they find us, they will take the food you give. They will take my children, maybe. They will take you too." Evan didn't answer. Instead, he stepped toward the cave entrance, pressing his back against the wall just out of sight. The footsteps stopped. Silence filled the air. Then a voice. "Lyra." It was deep, oily, and slow, like a snake tasting the air. I know you're in there. You ran far, but not far enough. Evan felt Lyra flinch behind him. You don't belong in human land, the voice continued. Come out now, and maybe I'll let the little ones live. Maybe. Evan didn't wait to hear more. He swung round the corner, rifle raised. The figure outside was tall and broad, covered in rough armor made from scavenged metal plates. His face was hidden behind a cracked visor. Behind him, two more figures stood in the shadows, their weapons long and jagged. Move along, Evan said sharply, his voice carrying across the rocks. She's under my protection now. The leader tilted his head, as if surprised. A human, helping her kind. He laughed, the sound harsh and ugly. That's dangerous, farmer. You'll lose more than crops for this. Evan stepped forward, the barrel of his rifle steady. Last warning. The leader studied him for a long moment, then gave a slow, mocking bow. Enjoy your new friend while you can. Hunger makes people desperate. We'll be back. They turned and melted into the darkness, but their footsteps echoed for a long time before fading away completely. Evan lowered the rifle, his hands tight around it. He knew they weren't bluffing. Inside the cave, Lyra knelt by her children. She didn't speak until the last sound of the raiders had gone. You should not have done that, she whispered. Now they will watch you too. Evan shrugged. They were already watching me. You just gave them a reason. She looked at him for a long time. Why help me? Evan didn't answer right away. He thought about the winters he'd survived. As a boy, the gnawing in his stomach, the way his mother's hands had trembled when she split the last loaf of bread. Finally, he said, because if I was in your place, I'd want someone to do the same. Lyra's eyes softened, though her voice stayed steady. Then we make a deal. I will work your land as if it is my own. I will fix what is broken. I will give you more harvest than you have seen before. In return, you give my children food and safety. Evan studied her. She spoke with certainty, like someone used to surviving by making promises they could keep. Can you work like that in human soil? He asked. Her lips curved into a faint smile. Better, my people. We know how to make the ground live. Again, that caught his attention. The past few seasons had been hard for everyone. If she really could improve the soil, it might save his farm. All right, he said slowly. We have a deal. The relief in her face was subtle but real. She touched her children's heads, murmuring something in her own language. They looked at Evan, their eyes wide and cautious, but not afraid. Tomorrow, Evan said, we start early, but tonight you and the kids will sleep in my barn. It's warmer than here and safer. Lyra hesitated. If they follow, they'll find me ready, Evan said. She didn't argue after that. Together, they gathered what little the children had: scraps of fabric, a small metal cup, and a single smooth stone that one of them kept clutched in his tiny hand. The walk back to the farm was quiet. The stars above seemed sharper now, cutting into the black sky. Every sound made Evan glance over his shoulder, but the hills stayed still. When they reached the barn, Evan lit a small lantern and showed them inside. It smelled of hay and old wood, but it was dry and sheltered. He brought out a sack of grain and a pot of thick stew he'd made earlier. The children ate slowly at first, their hands unsure, then faster as hunger took over. Lyra ate little, watching them instead. You should eat, Evan told her. They eat first, she said simply. After the bowls were empty, the children curled up in the hay, asleep within minutes. Lyra stood at the barn door, looking out at the dark fields. "They will come again," she said quietly. "I know," Evan replied. Her eyes met his. "When they do, I will stand with you. You saved my children. That is a debt I will repay." Evan nodded once. Out here, survival was about more than food, it was about allies. And tonight, he had just made one who might change everything. But somewhere beyond the hills, in the cold and empty night, the raiders were already planning their return. Morning came with a thin grey light, stretching across the fields like a tired hand. Evan woke before the sun, as he always did, but this time there was an uneasy weight in his chest. The barn was quiet, except for the soft breathing of Lyra's children. They were curled together in the hay, their small frames hidden beneath a blanket Evan had found. Lyra was already awake, crouched near the door. She was watching the fields through a narrow crack in the wood, her silver skin faint in the pale light. "They are gone. For now," she said without turning her head. Evan stepped beside her, scanning the land. Empty, but he knew better than to feel safe. "They'll be back," he said. "They always come back," she replied. They started work early. Lyra moved, with a speed and focus that surprised him. Her long fingers worked the soil gently, almost like she was coaxing it to breathe. She showed him a strange way of planting, pressing seeds deeper, mixing them with bits of crushed stone she carried in a small pouch. She claimed it would help the roots hold water longer. By midday, Evan noticed something. She didn't just plant, she listened. Every so often, she would stop, press her palm flat to the earth, and close her eyes, as if the soil spoke to her. "You really think this will make a difference?" Evan asked, curious. Lyra's eyes opened slowly. "Your soil is tired, but it can wake again. It only needs the right care." Her words stirred something in him. For years, he had fought to keep his land alive, always feeling like it was slipping away. Maybe, just maybe, she was right. They worked until the shadows grew long. That's when it happened. The sound, faint at first, carried on the wind, the scraping, dragging noise he had heard before. Evan's hands stilled. Lyra froze in place, her body tense. The sound grew louder, joined by a low rumble. Dust began to rise at the far edge of the fields. "They are here," Lyra whispered. Evan grabbed his rifle from the fence post. He saw them now, 3 figures, the same from the night before, but they weren't alone. More shapes followed behind, moving in a loose, threatening line. The leader stepped forward, visor catching the dying light. His voice carried easily over the quiet field. "Farmer," he called, "you've had a night to think. Give us the woman and her young, and we will leave you in peace." Evan raised his rifle. "Not happening," the leader chuckled. "You think you can fight us alone? We've taken bigger farms than this." Lyra stepped up beside Evan. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the air. "You will not take my children." The raider's head tilted toward her. "Ah, still proud. That won't last." They began to spread out, moving toward the barn where the children were hidden. Evan's pulse quickened. He couldn't let them get that close. "Get inside," he told Lyra. "No," she said firmly. "I fight with you." Before he could argue, one of the raiders lunged forward. Evan fired, the crack of the rifle echoing across the field. The shot hit the ground near the raider's feet, kicking up dirt. The others slowed, reassessing. The leader raised his hand, and his men stopped. "You have spirit, farmer, but bullets run out. Hunger does not." Evan kept the rifle steady. "Try me." For a moment, no one moved. Then the leader gave a short laugh and stepped back. Fine, we'll take your food another way. See you soon, farmer. They turned and left, but not in haste. Their retreat felt like a promise, not a surrender. When they were gone, the silence was thick and heavy. Lyra's breathing was fast, but her voice was steady. They will return with more. Evan nodded. Then we'll be ready. That night, they fortified the barn. Evan boarded up the windows, reinforced the doors, and set traps along the outer fence. Lyra helped her movements quick and skilled. She knew ways to hide food underground, masking the scent so no scavenger raider could find it. In the quiet moments, Evan caught glimpses of her with her children. She would kneel beside them, speaking in soft tones, stroking their hair. Her entire body seemed to relax only when they were near. As darkness fell, Evan sat by the door with his rifle across his lap. Lyra sat across from him, her eyes catching the faint lantern light. They will not stop, she said. They will come until one of us is gone. Evan looked past her, toward the small shapes of her sleeping children. Then we make sure it's not us. A shadow passed across Lyra's face, half fear, half resolve. I will not run again, she said quietly. This time, I will fight. Outside, somewhere beyond the fence line, a lone scrape echoed in the night. A reminder that the threat was never far away, and Evan knew the real fight hadn't even begun. The night was long. Evan didn't sleep. Neither did Lyra. They took turns watching the dark fields from the barn's doorway, listening for the first sign of trouble. The air was cold enough to make Evan's breath mist in front of him. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, but it was the silence after that worried him most. The raiders would come. He could feel it. Just before dawn, Lyra's children stirred, rubbing sleep from their eyes. Evan gave them each a piece of bread from the storage crate. They ate quickly, still too thin, but stronger than the night before. Lyra crouched beside them, speaking quietly in her own language. Evan didn't understand the words, but the tone was enough soft but fierce, as if she was telling them to be brave. Then they heard it. A low, steady rumble. Boots on dirt. The sharp clank of metal. Evan's stomach tightened. They're here. He moved to the fence line, crouching low. Lyra followed, a short metal blade in her hand, something she had carried since the night they met. The raiders came into view over the ridge. More than before. 7 of them this time. The leader was still at the front, his visor glinting in the weak light. He walked slowly, confidently, as if this land already belonged to him. When they reached the edge of the field, the leader called out, "Last chance, farmer. Hand over the alien and the little ones. You might even keep your farm." Evan's voice was steady. Not happening. The leader's chuckle was low and cold. Then we take it all. They charged. Evan fired first, the crack of the rifle tearing through the early morning air. One raider dropped, clutching his leg. Lyra was already moving, fast and silent, darting between rows of crops. She struck at another raider with her blade, her movements sharp and precise. The fight was quick and brutal. The traps they had set the night before caught two raiders, one tangled in barbed wire, another tripping over a hidden snare. But there was still too many. Evan fired again, the recoil jarring his shoulder. A raider lunged at him, swinging a jagged weapon, but Evan blocked it with the rifle's stock and shoved him back. Lyra was a blur of motion, her blade flashing in the pale light. She fought with the kind of desperation only a mother could have. But Evan saw the danger to raiders had broken off, heading toward the barn where the children hid. Lyra he shouted, pointing. She turned, sprinting across the field. Evan followed, firing at one of the raiders, dropping him before he reached the barn. The other one made it to the door, only to be met by Lyra, who slammed into him with all her weight, driving him to the ground. Her blade struck once, clean and final. The children were safe, for now, but the leader was still standing. He stepped forward slowly, drawing a long curved blade from his belt. "You've made a mistake, farmer," he said, his voice calm despite the chaos. "This is your last harvest." Evan leveled the rifle at him. "Maybe, but you're not living to see it." The leader moved fast, faster than Evan expected. He swatted the rifle aside with his blade, forcing Evan back. The weapon clattered to the ground. Before the raider could strike again, Lyra was there. She didn't hesitate. She stepped between them, her own blade flashing. The two fought in a blur of steel and sparks. Evan scrambled for the rifle, his heart pounding. The fight between Lyra and the leader was fierce. She moved with speed, but the leader was stronger. He knocked her back, her blade spinning away into the dirt. The raider raised his weapon for the killing blow. The rifle cracked. The leader froze, his blade halfway down. Slowly, he fell to his knees, then collapsed face first into the dirt. Evan lowered the rifle, smoke curling from the barrel. The remaining raiders didn't stay to fight. They grabbed their wounded and fled into the hills, their shouts fading into the distance. Silence fell over the field. Evan walked to Lyra, offering her a hand. She took it, her silver skin cold to the touch. For a moment, neither spoke. The children ran from the barn, throwing their arms around her. She held them close, her eyes closing as she whispered to them. Finally, she looked at Evan. "You saved us." Evan shook his head. "We saved each other." The sun was rising now, painting the sky in soft gold and pink. The fields, scarred from the fight, still stretched wide and open, waiting for the season ahead. Lyra turned to the land, her voice quiet but certain. "This will grow. We will make it live again." Evan looked at her, then at the children, then at the horizon. For the first time in a long time, the farm didn't feel like it was his alone. And though the threat of the raiders might return, someday one thing was clear: this land and the people on it would stand together. The wind carried the smell of fresh soil. Somewhere in that quiet morning, hope had taken root.